Cleopatra is one of the most controversial figures in human history. What facts have been declassified so far? Greetings! Today, we will talk about the Queen Cleopatra, which many of you know firsthand. Is it true that the woman was born thanks to incest of her relatives and paid for it with her appearance? Why many men wanted to sleep with the Egyptian queen? For what purpose Cleopatra ordered to cut the belly of a pregnant woman in prison? Be sure to watch the video to the very end so you don't miss all the key details. Incest victim. First, we'd like to surprise you a bit. It turns out that incest, or inbreeding, was actively practiced in ancient times. The rulers of Egypt and other states correctly believed that consanguinity of relatives guarantees the appearance of a reliable child in the family, which, in fact, should subsequently become a true heir. So, Cleopatra was born. Her parents were brother and sister from the Ptolemaic dynasty. Except that no one could not guess how such incest would turn out and how it would affect the physique and appearance of the future queen of ancient Egypt. First, Cleopatra suffered from excess weight. This problem queen just inherited from her parents, and those in turn from other members of the family. Therefore, we can say with full confidence that the Macedonian dynasty of Ptolemies suffered from fullness. Secondly, the ideal of Cleopatra's appearance also leaves much to be desired. Researchers and contemporaries are ready to fully convince us that the beauty of the queen remained only on paper and screens. And you cannot argue. Especially when the woman played such enchanting actresses as Elizabeth Taylor, Sophia Loren, and others. Cleopatra herself was also incestuous with her relatives. They turned out to be two brothers, Ptolemy XIII and XIV respectively. Plus, the woman was married to the famous ancient Roman politician and commander Mark Antony. So the perfect image of the real Cleopatra can disappoint many. Among other things, collected information that points to the masculine facial features of the queen, slightly bulging eyes and a large nose. And also the woman grew not straight, but wavy hair. But in the past, it is most likely that other qualities were valued in a woman. Although femininity, to a certain extent, was also present in her. For example, grooming and a voice pleasant to others. Well, let's talk about the abilities and character of the woman pharaoh. Talent, above all. Who would have thought how literate and talented was the queen of ancient Egypt? Apparently, these merits helped her to become the ruler of a powerful and prosperous state. In addition, to date, the following is known about the education of Cleopatra. The first thing we want to draw your attention to is the knowledge of several languages. As you can already guess, Cleopatra in perfection had to know the native Greek and then the Egyptian language. However, during the years of her education, the woman mastered at least 7 languages. This fact confirms that the queen was a polyglot and in the services of translators and did not need. In addition to knowledge of foreign languages, Cleopatra perfectly mastered not only humanitarian, but also natural sciences. At a young age, the girl studied literature, philosophy, music, and mathematics. She played several musical instruments and amazed others with her knowledge of literary works. Subsequently, Cleopatra wrote poetry, sang and danced beautifully in public. The woman found a special approach to research in the field of science and then switched to politics. It came to the point that before entering public office, Cleopatra took the place of counselor to her relatives. The queen's wayward nature. Do you think that Cleopatra was charismatic and even with a sense of humor? Of course, yes. That is why the woman repeatedly became the main object of attention from the male population. Otherwise, how else to explain the fact that even Gaius Julius Caesar could not resist the charm of a beautiful woman? By the way, after the death of the ruler of ancient Rome, all the attention Cleopatra switched to Mark Antony. Over the years, the woman has formed a consumer attitude to the male part of the population. There is a version that at the disposal of Cleopatra was a whole harem of young men. Finally, the queen could do with the slaves as she wanted. Her passion she practiced on these people. It wasn't just the male slaves. One of the legends says that Cleopatra, being an inquisitive and creative person, ordered to dissect the stomach of a slave in a position. The queen was simply interested in how the fetus develops in the womb. The servants had to fulfill such a specific request, and no one could even stand in front of the woman. Cleopatra's word is law. It is also worth noting that the character of the queen allowed her to gather crowds of men, each of whom dreamed of sleeping with such a person. And even despite the fact that after a hot night, lovers Cleopatra necessarily waited for death. Therefore, the expression "to pay for the intimacy of his own life" has acquired a direct meaning. If we summarize the above, we can come to a clear conclusion: to find a common language with men, Cleopatra managed with great success. This feature of the ancient Egyptian queen used throughout her life. With political figures, she could agree that those in unnecessary time did not pose a threat to Egypt. But ordinary men performed all the fun of the queen and then went into the next world. Why would they do that? Most of you are already wondering why Cleopatra so cold-bloodedly acted with her victims. Well, there is a clarification to that question. It is very important to understand the perceptions of the people of that time. As you have already realized, Cleopatra is a royal figure. Closest to the representatives of royal blood were relatives. But in this case, ordinary mortals were of no value, especially slaves. Therefore, to dispose of each of them allowed the worldview of the woman pharaoh. Killed Cleopatra, her lovers also for political reasons. It is no secret that the man who slept with the queen could then blab. The same enemies who were also not averse to learn all the secrets of ancient rulers. In other words, Cleopatra got rid of unnecessary witnesses so as not to worry about her life and future. The mysterious death of the queen. So, at the age of 38 years, Cleopatra faced a very difficult situation at that time. The Roman Emperor Octavian, who managed to conquer Egypt, did not find a common language with the woman, whereas the latter tried to negotiate with the winner and solve everything peacefully. Alas, this time it didn't work. All hopes of the queen collapsed. She was well aware of what awaited her. It was assumed that Cleopatra will be put in chains and all her jewelry will be sorted out by the winners. The queen did not want to be disgraced and therefore decided to take the responsible step, to commit suicide. Historians are still arguing about how Cleopatra died. According to one version, she was bitten by a poisonous snake, according to another, poisoning poison or even opium. Where buried the queen and in what place is the body of a woman too is truly unknown. Conclusion. Thus, Cleopatra remembered to mankind as an ambiguous and contradictory personality. In parallel, she was considered a kind of ideal of perfection and therefore no one could not resist her. Although the pleasant female appearance of the queen is doubtful, but it was her character that became a highlight in the history of ancient Egypt.